Hi, my name is Benson Mbuya. I'm a PhD candidate here at Polytechnic of Binado. I joined the PhD program in November last year, and I'm going to present Energy4growing project. The Energy4growing project started in 2014, the beginning of 2014. So when I joined Polytechnico di Milano, the project had already started. So I'm going to take you through the project. To begin, this is our outline. I'm going to speak to give an overview of the project and situation in the motivation on such projects as E4G project, and the innovation of the project, and deployment of the project, and how the project is currently operating, and also the ongoing research activities. So in Africa, most countries, Africa is full of resources, but most often people say it's not powerful, meaning that there's a lot of untapped resources. Most of the people, like 80% of the population, live in rural areas, and that's the population which doesn't have access to electricity. So there's been a big, massive campaign from many governments in Africa to promote rural electrification. And because most of the national grids are unstable or weak, most people have resolved into generators and into solar power and into hydro turbine solution. So you end up having communities which have their own power generation sources, and such communities are called microgrids. So they can generate power, and sometimes they are connected to the grid, the national grid, and when there's no power from the national grid, they can still continue to generate their own power source. And sometimes these kind of communities may exist without being connected to the national grid, as in they may exist in very remote areas. So that's the whole idea of microgrid. So in order to promote electrification in Africa, clearly microgrids play an essential part, and it's inevitable that in the next years microgrids will continue to play a major role, and therefore to provide electricity to most people. So Energy4growing project is a similar effort. It's a project which was sponsored by Politecnico di Milano and Eco Energy and many other participants or sponsors. We have Phoenix Contact. Phoenix Contact mainly provided a PLC, which is which helped in computerizing the system which was installed, and IREM company, which was involved in the manufacturing of the hydro turbine, which is currently in the Ngarenanyuki village. In Ngarenanyuki village, there's a school which has about 500 students and over 500 students and staff. So initially they started with a hydro turbine, which was manufactured by IREM company. Sironi company, as one of the partners of this project, provided batteries for testing in the initial stage when when they manufactured high energy hub or switchboards were here in Milan, in the lab. So during the testing phase of the switchboards, Sironi provided the batteries. And then energy team provided a meter, because before the project started, the energy pattern or habits of the Ngarenanyuki school had to be examined, so had to be measured. So a meter was installed and it recorded for energy usage activities for over 100 days. LV was the company which was responsible in assembly of the switchboard, and most of the work was done in MHM lab here in Milan. So the Energy4growing project, it did not bring in power generation source to the community, but it helped manage the resources which were already available in the school. So the school had already a 3 kilowatt hydro turbine and a 5 kilowatt generator, diesel generator, and it had some panels and few lead acid batteries. But when the project was being deployed, apart from installation of the switchboard machine, it involved also addition of solar panels and a 30 batteries battery bank was added. And the project is currently being uploaded on Facebook. There's a site, a page for the project which has been created. Ngarenanyuki is in Tanzania, in East Africa, very close to Mount Kilimanjaro, and Arusha National Park. Somewhere there in the middle, there's Ngarenanyuki Secondary School. So it is remotely located, and the school is not connected to the grid. The electric grid, the national electric grid, TANESCO, hasn't reached the school. So that's why the school decided to come up with alternatives. So this slide was a video recorded from Google Earth. After downloading the PowerPoint presentation, you can play this particular slide and you'll be able to see the exact location of Ngarenanyuki School. So Energy4growing project, in the approach which Energy4growing project took, it started by doing a metering campaign. In the metering campaign, a meter was installed in the school to check the needs of the school, the energy use habits of the school. And this was observed for a number of days and months, over 100 days. This data which was collected was very fundamental in understanding the energy habits of the people. Why was this done? It was done in order to avoid oversizing or undersizing the system which was about to be put in place. So this was in order to avoid designing a system which is too expensive or which doesn't give, which is inadequate, which doesn't meet the energy needs of the people. So all the dynamics on how people use the energy in a day had to be studied before designing the system. The original system had the hydro turbine, the 3 kilowatt hydro turbine, and alongside the hydro turbine there are some 4 kilowatts energy dampers. The hydro turbine produces AC, which is used by the school. When there's an excess in energy production, this excess is dumped in the energy dampers as heat. So in other words, when there's overproduction of electricity, it is wasted as heat. And the graph in this slide shows the amount of energy which the school use. On the school, on a typical day, they use 12 kilowatt hour per day. But when you look at the metered load profile, you can see that the energy habits or consumption is very random. One day differs from the next. So this is what was observed in the early days before deploying the project. The original system, as I pointed out earlier, it had the hydro turbine and energy dampers. Here is the photo showing the hydro turbine and the energy dampers. There was also a solar, PV photovoltaic panels and batteries. You can see the batteries here. This system was clearly not enough. It was very small compared to the number of people in the school, as in over 500 people. So if the batteries were low and there was not enough sunlight, there was always an emergency backup generator, seen also in the photo. But the school desires to use renewables since they are cheap compared to using generator. All the loads connected to the school were connected and disconnected manually from this switchboard. So the school had a single bus, and the single bus means that they could only use one power source at a time. If in case there was no enough water in the runoff river, which cuts across the school, and that's where the hydro turbine gets its power generates its power from. So if there's not enough, if the water level is shallow, meaning that there's not enough water, this causes power variation. If power is not enough, it means the school has to switch from hydro turbine to generator, and they have to do this manually. So each time this happens, someone had to go to the control room and to do the switch. So the same river which the school depends for the hydro turbine is also used by nearby villagers for irrigation activities. And when this happens, usually water gets cut from the school. The new system which has been installed adds to the power of the old original system. A 3 kilowatt PV array was installed, and also a 30 kilowatt hour lead acid battery bank was also installed. So there were 30 batteries installed, and also an addition of PV photovoltaic panels, and also a switchboard which houses a bidirectional inverter for charging and also using the batteries, with also a PLC which controls the loads. So the loads, all the power generated from the system, the current architecture in the school is AC. It's AC power. In the photo here we can see the two switchboards which were installed, and they've been designated the name Q1 and Q2. Q1 houses the inverter, Q2 houses the PLC, which are very essential to the workings of the switchboard. The Q1 switchboard has user interface. I mean, it has a human machine interface, HMI, which displays the sock or the battery level. So the operators or the users of the system can see how much charge the batteries have. They can also on the Q2 panel, they can also see the amount of power being generated by the energy sources and being consumed by the energy loads through some analog meters, voltmeter and ammeters. The Q2 HMI also allows for the manual changing. The user can choose to operate the machine in manual mode or in automatic mode. You can also choose to disconnect some loads, or he can also choose which power source to be used. This system was installed in April this year, in the week of 8th April to 21st April, during which the system was installed and tested, and it also involved training the local staffs how to use and to handle the system. Training was done in the local language, Swahili, and it was also done in English, along giving them manuals for how to operate the system. So manuals were prepared and copies were also given to them. So this was repetitive work in order to ensure that they correctly understand how to use the system. And also, if you download this PowerPoint presentation, you'll be able to you'll be able to play an animation in the Energy Hub operation PowerPoint slide, which shows basically how the system works. And in the animation, it shows how the battery bank is charged by the hydro turbine and also the solar panels. So this is in contrast with the previous system. Here we see that excess energy generated by the hydro turbine is stored in the batteries instead of being wasted as heat in the dampers. And also another notable point from the operation of the machine, the switchboards which were installed. The system can work in manual mode. When it works in manual mode, the users can choose to put, for instance, they can choose to put the generator on one bus bar, on one electric line, and to power the heavy loads which consume more power. Simultaneously, they can put another power source, let's say the hydro turbine. It can run on the second bus bar and also power other maybe light loads, or the inverter can also be on the second bus bar. So it can work in this way. When it's in automatic mode, the Energy Hub, the switchboards, the PLC chooses the power sources automatically, and it uses the hydro power as well as the power, the PV, the inverter. It uses the inverter and the hydro turbine. So this inverter and hydro turbine work together, meaning that when there's less power from the hydro turbine, the inverter adds up in order to ensure that the power received by the load is enough. So this is how the system is managed in automatic mode. And also in automatic mode, the system can charge the batteries by using excess power from the hydro turbine, as well as the PV panel. This slide shows depicts the difference between the situation before the project and after the project. As pointed out, this project mainly helped to install a system which will increase energy efficiency and also better manage the energy sources in a more sensible way. In the previous, before the project started, there was a lot of energy wastage and the system was too manual. So we see that after the project, the system is more automated, more efficient, and it's an upgrade. We have 2 bus bars, and it also offers, the system offers possible connections to the grid if the grid extends, if there is an expansion of the grid towards the school, location of the school.